So essentially for this video what we're going to do is make a shaker style panel door. Really simple. I'm actually using a new product to me, or a new type of product to me, which is pretty much like a kind of dado stack blade set up in a table saw, except for this is a router cutter where the shank of the cutter is an arbor, and then you can have various slodding tools of various heights or thicknesses to stack together and get the desired slot size. Now when you put this together, you do have to remember to put the cutters in the right way round, which I didn't do the first time, and as you just saw, I didn't get anywhere at all. And if you look really closely, there's a little bit of burning on the piece of test material. It's just another reason to make a test cut. So I'm playing around with the machine again. I flip the cutters backwards and forwards, and then it cuts absolutely beautifully, as one would expect from a brand new router cutter. So I'm going to check that everything's all cutting correctly, and then I'm going to flip it over. That then effectively slightly widens the cut, but it ensures that it is exactly centered in the work. So then I'm going to cut slots in both the rails and the stiles, and then also a slot in the end of the stiles, which will take a loose tenon later on. Ideally I'd be using something like a 6mm loose tenon, but I intended to use a slightly thicker panel which has a decorative bead pre-machined into it, and then just offcuts of that for the loose tenons. So my initial slot wants to be 9mm or 3/8 of an inch, well, just under 3/8 of an inch. Get all those bits cut, make sure they're all good, give them a quick inspect, and then it's time for a dry assembly. Now when I'm making panel doors, I do like to leave my stiles extra long. That gives me the opportunity to adjust the height of the door to whatever I need, and then also if you're moving it around in transit, it protects the corners of the door as well once you've squared it all up. Check that the panel is the right size. It was actually over a little bit, so I worked out how much I need to trim off the panel and cut that off on the crosscut sled on the table saw. Could quite easily have used my miter saw, but this was already sort of available and set up. So another quick check, get it vaguely square, measure the right height, make sure it's all fitted in correctly. There's a little bit of a tight fit in places, so jam it all together, make sure my measurements are what they need to be, and then I just tap it all down to one end, and that saves me having to measure. I can just say the stiles need to be that long, gives me a bit of an overhang, and then I'll trim those off as well. So basically doing the same thing with the loose tenons. These are just offcut scraps of the panel basically. Use one of the rails as a stop block and then just cut a load off. You can use those in a little while. Might as well cut a few extras, you never know. So the panel goes together as normal, and just slot those little tenons in there afterwards. I don't even bother making sure they're the right length. Over length is fine because that's all going to get trimmed off afterwards. One thing with the panel, and you can see there the decorative part, is it comes pre-primed from the supplier. So I don't really want glue on the primer, so I'll just take off a section, sand it down back to the bare MDF in places, make sure the glue gets a good surface contact, and then plenty of glue, whack it all in, put the thing together, clamp it up, and you're good to go. You can leave it overnight. I think I left it a couple of hours or long enough for the glue to go off anyway, whatever it was. Check if square, wasn't quite square, so tonk it in one of the corners, and then I use the sharp chisel just to scrape out any squeeze out before sanding it all down. I could have used a power sander, but it was actually not in the workshop at the time, so I did it by hand. And then a nice firm foam roller, try saying that 10 times fast, and a little craft brush just to get in the corners. A sash brush is really good for that as well. So paint it all up, stick it in the drying rack, clear everything away, and then jobs are good.